The second like Oprah gets involved, I kind of tune out. I don't know why. Hey everyone! Hello! So today I thought it'd be fun to do a best of 2021. These are not books that came out in 2021, so let's just get that clear right now. And I do have a mix of fiction and nonfiction that I would like to share with you. Some of these books I also don't I don't have physical copies of, so we will see if editor Kelly in the future can do some like post magic to make the cover appear. Let's get started. We have 8 books today that I'm excited to talk about. The first one that we will talk about is Broad Strokes. Broad Strokes, 15 Women Who Made Art and Made History by Bridget Quinn. This is an art history book, which I haven't read a whole lot of, and I thought this one was so well done and really spoke to a need that Bridget saw, which is that there's this lack of literature and information about female artists, all sorts, painters, sculptors. And so she really does a great job of laying out the lives of these 15 different women from the past to modern day, what they do, kind of the journey and the trials and tribulations they experience as part of like not only their life journey, but also being a woman of color, being disenfranchised in a lot of different ways in life and how they overcame it and produced amazing art. And I thought it was just a well-rounded book because you got to see the art, you got to get into like the behind the scenes, the life of the artist, as well as some of the nuance of what makes that art so good. And it's just really important, I think, to have that representation and to be like, these people existed, and not have them erased from history. The next one, this is in no particular order by the way, the next one is Women of the Beat Generation. Women of the Beat Generation, Writers, Artists, and Muses at the Heart of a Revolution by Brenda Knight. This one was another really well-rounded nonfiction book that really takes a look into the Beat Generation from the angle of women and the contributions that they made both in life and in art. And I was so excited when I found this. I didn't know this book existed, found it in a bookstore, and I've been complaining for ages about how much hype the Beat Generation gets. And an unpopular opinion, it's a lot of just like drunk white dudes, like kind of being irresponsible and obnoxious. Okay, I said it. But this does such a great job of rounding out that picture, that it wasn't these men in isolation, it wasn't just men, that there was a whole movement of people that were writing about disenfranchisement and the different issues they saw in their day-to-day lives, and also the life as the nation of the whole lives, words, and as like a culture and as a nation, the issues that they saw. And so excellent book, highly recommend it. And you also get some excerpts of each person's art. So you get to read some poetry, you get to read some of like a memoir of another lady, and really just, again, get that full, really get a truer picture of the Beat Generation than the like generic song and dance that you hear about all the time. Next one, we have Untamed by Glennon Doyle. So Untamed by Glennon Doyle is a memoir that shook up my world, to be honest. And like I was so taken off guard by it. I actually got it for free at like one of those like little neighborhood libraries. I happened to recognize that it was the same author of Love Warrior, who I'd shelved that book a lot at the bookstore, but I had never actually read and I wasn't really interested in it. Unfortunately, the second like Oprah gets involved, I kind of tune out. I don't know why. I just am not interested. It's probably the pretension in me, but that's how it is. But anyway, picked it up, read it. Oh, I cried like 2 or 3 times. And it was devastating, and it was the book I needed at just the right moment. And like I said, it's a memoir about Glennon's life and like recent life, right? 'Cause she's had memoirs before this of her grappling with her marriage with her then husband and slowly discovering that she's in love with a woman, and that woman happened to be Abby Wambach. And it's reconciling, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a wife? What does it mean to be a mother? You have all of these supposed obligations with all these different people in your life, and like, are you going to really ruin it all for this chance, this offshoot, this weird inkling? And I read that, I think maybe in the spring or summer of 2021, and then shortly after her podcast came out, and I listened to the podcast like every day. And so she and her work have just become such a big part of my life that it's crazy to think that like 6 or 8 months ago I had never read anything by her, didn't know anything about her. It's amazing what one piece of work can do if it's really good. So I'd highly recommend it. It's super readable, and I think every woman should read it. Then we have Teacher Man by Frank McCourt. This one was another big surprise. I had tried to read his memoir, Angela's Ashes, and couldn't get into it, which always sounds horrible when it's like a book about someone's life, but that's the truth. This was a complete 180 from Angela's Ashes. Understandably, it's still a memoir of his, but it's from later on in his life. And he's an Irish man who's teaching in, I think it's New York. Yeah, in New York. He can capture characters and their voices really well. He can really like boil down life to these really interesting moments or snapshots, and do it with such observation but also such wit that I really just flew through this book. I really liked it. It also helps that I've been a teacher before, so I could definitely relate with some of the things he was talking about, but I don't think you have to be a teacher to appreciate this book. Like, it was really interesting to see his journey, and like him starting out as a teacher and being unsure of himself, and like, how am I going to wrangle these teenagers, and how am I going to get them to listen to me and respect me, and how am I supposed to teach them anything, and also what they end up teaching him. And it's good. It's a good one. Highly recommend, you guys. Best of. And then the last nonfiction one is We Are the Weather by Jonathan Safran Foer. If that name sounds familiar to you, it's probably because he wrote, hold on, I always get the name of his book wrong. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close is the name of his fiction book that he's probably most well known for. It ended up becoming a movie with Tom Hanks, my dude. He also wrote Eating Animals, which I'd also recommend. This is such a phenomenal book, you guys. It's a book about climate change. He does it from such a unique angle that I haven't read anything like it before. You know, it's not a cut and dry, here are the facts book, and it's not an essay argument based book either. It's like part memoir, part facts, part plea. They're like kind of like micro essays that really hit home from the human angle, that really like the humanist, like deep in our bones angle of why it's so hard to believe in climate change, and why even if we do believe in it, why it's so hard to act on that in our day-to-day lives and make decisions related to something that's kind of this abstract, nebulous concept, because it's just so big and looming, but also so intangible in a lot of ways. Oh, this book made me cry, you guys. And it didn't make me cry from the like, oh, the polar bears are dying kind of angle, but just on the like, he just hit such a chord of like humanity and human psychology. And I don't know. I don't know if I can describe this book well enough for just how unique it is, but I think everyone needs to read it. It is so crucial that people read it, because climate change is real, it's happening, we need to work on it. But I think this is maybe one of the few texts that I think that could actually get the ball rolling, because it deals from the emotional angle, not just the like intellectual, factual angle. Please read. Best of. And then we have the 3 fiction best ofs of 2021. The first is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I was so surprised by this book. I read it for a book club, and it was so good. It was so good, you guys. I was so surprised. I went in with such low expectations. Again, was reading it for a book club, and I'm like, yeah, it's a classic. I want to read it because it's a classic, but I wasn't anticipating liking it. I thought it'd be decent at best. It's an older book. It's a book for kids, and you guys, the protagonist is young, but it's written at a level that anyone can enjoy. It is not at a very like low reading level writing, and it's fast paced. It's not slower drags like some classics do, and it was an adventure story. I had so much fun, and there were so many quirky, funny, weird things in it, and the characters were intriguing. My only gripe is that the ending came a bit fast. I wish they just like, we could have spent a little bit more time in that ending bit, but man, it was so good. end of the year, still thinking about, man, that's a good book. And I'm probably going to reread it at some point because it was just a fun time. And I can see it as being a good book for like if you're in a reading slump and you just want to go on a bit of an adventure. Highly recommend. Best of. The next one is No No Boy by John Okada. I had never heard of this before. I happened to get it from a friend. It should be required reading. It is really interesting. It's like classic Japanese American literature that's kind of gone under the radar for whatever reason. And it is really well written. It is from an interesting perspective that I haven't seen a whole lot of before. And it's about a Japanese American man who went to prison rather than being drafted into the war in World War II. And he went to prison instead because he kind of felt conflicted because his family felt like it was un-Japanese of him to fight in the war. But now he is out of prison, the war is over, and he's struggling to find his place in the world, and he kind of regrets the decision he made because he feels more American than Japanese because he grew up in America, and he feels like his mom and his father are like living in the past with this idea of what Japan was when they were still in Japan. And also him attempting to find a job with having to tell people, yeah, I didn't want to fight for this country and I went to prison instead in a place that's already it is still very racist and discriminatory against Japanese and Japanese Americans. It's so good, you guys, and definitely deserves its place among the classics, and I want more people to know about it and I want more people to read it. Give it a shot. And then last but not least, we have City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. This one was another big surprise and a book I would have never picked up and read if it hadn't been for a friend who was cleaning out her book collection. First off, there's better covers out here, but this cover, I'm sorry, but I don't like it at all. I think it's kind of lame. I wouldn't have picked it up. And then also, I don't think the title really reveals anything interesting. I don't think I would have like looked twice at the title or the cover. And it's kind of labeled as this like fantasy spy thriller. And I don't care for spy thrillers. So it had so many knocks against it, but I really, really loved the world building. It was phenomenal. The idea is that there's this continent that where the people used to have gods, and these gods like played an active role in like creating the cities and interacting with the citizens, and they ruled and conquered large parts of this world because of the power of the gods behind them. And then one of the islands that they had previously conquered goes to war against them and kills their gods. And in the aftermath, you have all of this not only loss because these people have lost their gods and their way of life and everything they know, but also like huge chunks of their cities just disappear along with the gods, and pieces of land and different part of the, I guess you wouldn't call it lore of the gods because it's very real in this world, but kind of the sense of identity and the different like magical elements that these gods created disappear with them. And so like if you're a fan of world building, if you're a fan of like these different types of people, the different types of gods, all these different magical elements at play, I think you'll be really intrigued by this. And it is a spy thriller, so if you're into spy thrillers, there's that too. And also there's really interesting questions being raised about like what is a god? What is a person's relationship with a god? Like if something has that kind of power, should it be power over or power with? I'm excited to read the second and third of this trilogy. I've never heard anyone talk about this series, so I'm hoping that the second and third book are just as good, and I will get back to you guys on that. So that is my best of books of 2021. I didn't read nearly as many books this year because I was in school and busy and all that fun stuff. But I'm very happy with the books I did read. There was a lot of great ones in there and plenty that I thought were awesome that I didn't mention, but I had to narrow it down a bit. I couldn't tell you about 62 books. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what your best of books of 2021 were. I'm always adding to my to be read, my TBR. Bye!